Whether you love me or hate me, you gotta vote for me.
Love him or hate him, on November the 5th, 2024, Donald Trump became the 47th President of the United States of America, making the greatest political comeback in history.
The Fox News decision desk can now officially project that Donald Trump will become the 47th President of the United States.
But knowing his history and the stuff he said and done, why did millions of people, 77 million people, stand by him? Are they blind and brainwashed, or is there something deeper going on?
I am the chosen one. Somebody had to do it.
You are fake news.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats.
We're going to build a wall. Mexico's going to pay for the wall.
Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay?
What do you have to lose?
The United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal. The United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord.
This is going to be great television, I will say that.
Hi, my name's Dr. Vinay Raniga, and if you're new here, I'm a former political leadership scholar at the University of Oxford. I'm passionate about exploring the forces that drive national prosperity to help your country grow, and the principles that will fuel personal success for you or me. Today, we're talking politics and diving into why people seem so divided in their viewpoint. It seems that our politics is more polarized than ever, with liberals alarmed at how people could vote for Trump, Boris and Modi, and conservatives alarmed at how people could vote for Kamala, Starmer or Rahul Gandhi. How could they give them the keys of power? Like, who the hell would vote for AOC is what someone who's conservative might say. To answer this question, we're going to do three things. Number one, we're going to break down the stats of the US presidential election to see if there's clues there. Number two, we're going to talk about some historical ideas of why things are so split. And number three, we're going to bring in the work of Jonathan Haidt, especially his book, The Righteous Mind, which gives us an insight into the psychology of political choice. Well, it was a wipeout. Trump won all 7 key swing states. What does that mean? Well, historically, out of 50 states in the US, each party has a stronghold. The Democrats have 18, including California, Washington, and Vermont. The Republicans have 23, like Utah, Alabama, and Kansas. We can pretty much be sure that these states will be won by their respective parties. However, there are 7 key swing states: Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, and North Carolina. This means that only a handful of states, the ones I mentioned, determine the presidential election. And this is why you see candidates ramping up their campaigning in these areas before election day. This is also why you get memes like, "This small town in the US is determining the future of the whole world," because in one way, it is true. You probably know this, but Trump won all key swing states in the last election, sending absolute shockwaves through the Democratic Party. Another thing to think about was voter demographics. There was a lot of analysis about the gender gap that developed between young people voting Trump or Harris. Young women generally voted for Harris, but young men shifted dramatically towards Trump. This graph from the Survey Center on American Life shows in 2020 a 17-point divide turned into a 31-point fissure. Why was this the case? Well, data shows that young men simply liked Trump, with 55% saying they had a favorable view of him, rather than not wanting to vote for a woman, which was a narrative on the left. A similar shift happened in the Latino population, which makes up 15% of all US voters. Although Harris still maintained a majority of Latino voters, there was a margin of 14 points between her and Trump. This is compared to a margin of 34 points between Trump and Biden in 2020. This graph, produced by the American Society and Council of Americas, shows the dramatic shift of Latino vote towards Trump in every single swing state, with Florida and Texas strengthening also. So those demographics are important, but I think the most important was this: household income. This chart from the Times and Sunday Times shows how Trump, although less successful in middle-class areas since 2020, was more successful among people from lower household incomes. He was also more popular with those without a college degree. This is crucial because, as my professor said, it represents the continual shift of the Republican Party being the party of country clubs to the party of country music. The final point on breaking down the 2024 presidential elections are the key issues. Another chart from the Times and Sunday Times shows Trump won on the economy, immigration, and foreign policy, whereas Harris won on arguments of strong democracy and abortion. These different divides in politics are called cleavages. Cleavages are how specific issues cut different parts of the electorate in different ways. Now, this is really interesting. Based on the political science of Ronald Inglehart, who works on post-materialism, it is clear to see how a mixture of income and other issues led to different types of voters voting for either Harris or Trump. Inglehart's theory on post-materialistic cleavages states that when a country becomes wealthier and more secure, people shift from prioritizing materialistic concerns like the economy or physical security to post-materialistic values like self-expression, environmentalism, and the quality of life. Now, I'm not saying that the issues of democracy and abortion are not important, but from Inglehart's analysis, they are post-materialist. The economy, immigration, and foreign policy are materialist, rooted in an experience that everyday people feel. Now, there's so much to say on that, but let's move on. There are three main reasons I feel our politics has become more split and polarized over the years. Number one, a lack of trust in institutions. Number two, the media landscape. And number three, economic divides. Let's start with trust in institutions. People are more skeptical of bigger institutional entities like the media, courts, and pharmaceutical companies. This is especially the case in democracies. More people are skeptical that their political system can make their life better, so they move away from the moderate analysis and narratives to more radical ones in search of a solution. A New York Times poll before the election found that nearly half of all voters said that they were skeptical that the American experiment in self-governance was working, with 45% saying that the nation's democracy does not do a good job at representing ordinary people. The same poll found that more than 60% of voters agreed that the government is mostly working for the benefit of itself and elites. The deficit in trust is not the only advantage that Trump had. Parties in power all across the globe were struggling. Gallup's polling strongly suggested that any Democratic candidate would have an uphill battle to climb that year. But the lack of confidence so many Americans have in their economic and political institutions is critical to understanding Trump's victory. They really wanted a radical change. The second thing is the media landscape. Where do people get most of their news from?
Thank God for outlets like Fox News.
Thank God for Fox News.
Thank God Fox News is on it. Thank God.
Thank God. Thank God. God bless Fox News.
The rise of partisan media echo chambers like Fox News on the right or MSNBC on the left has created a media ecosystem to reinforce partisan narratives.
And that has the effect of shaping public opinion about what they're doing.
People then choose to consume narratives only from one source which aligns with their belief but also reinforces a confirmation bias. More recently, social media is a more potent, localized outlet of consuming information. I ask a lot of young people where they get their news from, and they say social media. The problem with platforms like X, Instagram, YouTube is they provide and promote viral content, hopefully something like this, so a quick plug, please subscribe if you haven't already. But what that means is emotionally charged content or extreme takes do better. If you were to open social media right now, it would seem like the whole world is about to self-destruct. These echo chambers mean that your political view is reinforced and the opposition is demonized. The third thing is economic divides. We said previously that lower income communities were more likely to vote for Trump and higher income communities were more likely to vote for Harris. The broad trend across the US and the world is that in the last several decades there has been an increase in income and wealth inequality. The share of income held by the top 1% of earners has seen significant growth over the past few decades. In 1980, the top 1% held approximately 10% of the nation's income. By 2021, this share has risen to 19%. This graph from Pew Research Center shows that the gaps in income between upper income and middle income and lower income households is all rising. And the share held by middle income households, unfortunately, is falling. Why does this matter? economic discontent fuels the them versus us narrative. It's them with their technology on the West Coast versus us, the hard-working manufacturing base. It's them whose children can afford to go to college versus us who cannot afford to do so. It's them who can go on multiple vacations abroad every year versus us who cannot afford to go vacations outside the state, if at all. This discontent can add to anti-elite, anti-establishment politics, leading to a Trump-style populism on the right. But don't forget that left-wing populism, for example, Bernie Sanders or AOC on the left. Finally, section 3, the righteous mind. Let's talk about the deeper psychological reasons why the hell people would vote for Trump by bringing in this book by Jonathan Haidt. So I think this is a masterpiece on understanding why our politics is so divided. And if you want to grab a copy, the link is below. The Righteous Mind explores the unconscious, moral, psychological foundations behind why people identify as Republicans or Democrats, conservatives or liberal. He gives us 3 main tools, the third of which I think is especially interesting. The first tool he gives is intuitive versus rational thinking. Haidt argues that our political ideals are based on intuition rather than reasoning. It is our gut feelings about what feels right or wrong that we go with, and we use rationalizations to justify those positions. This is especially true for issues that touch on moral and cultural values, where people's beliefs can feel deeply ingrained and personal. We try to match those facts to the narratives we are trying to paint. Haidt uses the metaphor of the rider, which is reason, and the elephant, intuition, to explain how people arrive at political views. The rider, reason, tries to steer the elephant, which is intuition, but often the elephant is in control. In politics, both sides have moral intuitions that are shaped by their upbringing, environment, and experiences. The second thing Haidt talks about is groupishness. Human beings have a natural tendency to form groups and align with others who share their similar beliefs, which Haidt links to the evolutionary process. These groups are not just about logic, they also provide a sense of belonging and identity. Earlier I mentioned the us versus them mentality that can arise from economic disparity. But Haidt is suggesting that this us versus them mentality, where political groups actually come from, is natural and creates the view that people who hold different opinions are fundamentally different kinds of people. The third tool is the moral foundations theory. The final tool that helps us understand the first 2 is Haidt suggests that people's political beliefs are grounded in different moral foundations. These include fairness, care, loyalty, authority, sanctity, and liberty. The left, or Democrats, according to Haidt, tend to emphasize care, fairness, and liberty from oppression, focusing on compassion, equality, and social justice. The right, however, or maybe the Republicans, they tend to emphasize loyalty, authority, and sanctity, and also liberty or freedom from government overreach, valuing tradition, hierarchy, and social order. On this point, I remember my professor at Oxford, who really leans towards the left in his own political standpoint. He said in our first class that the right have more tools in their arsenal to create campaigns and touch the nerves of the electorate because they talk about tradition, law and order, the border, freedom. However, the left usually sees things through the lens of equality and fairness. Is this policy fair to all? Is it equal to all? So the right does have more lens to view things by to frame the argument. He continued, because of this, the right can understand the arguments of the left and reject them, but sometimes the people on the left, because of the moral instinct of equality, can't even understand the arguments of the right. They can't understand the arguments around the border and immigration. This makes sense when you're trying to question why the hell would people vote for Trump. Their moral psychological values are different. It is in this understanding of moral intuitions that can really help us reduce the demonization of other people's views and help us work together and frame arguments according to the audience we want to reach. Rather than seek total agreement, which will never happen, Haidt advocates for better communication, empathy, cooperation, so that we can manage the political divisiveness more constructively based on this theory. So there you have it. I hope this video sparked an interest within you on why people would vote for a political candidate that you personally detest. For some of you, that might be Trump. Others, maybe AOC or Bernie. Some of you, that might be Boris. Others, it might be Corbyn. If you have enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button and let me know what you thought in the comments. Hopefully, I'll see you in the next one.